A few years ago, I guess like 1 or 2 years ago, it was trending on social media, this sudden revelation that someone had that men think about the ancient Roman Empire every day. I don't know if that's true or not. Like, I don't know if I think about the Roman Empire every day. Maybe I want to say maybe I'm above average because I study things in Latin and like church things. But I did find myself this week researching ancient and medieval fire weapons to see if flamethrowers were a thing in the ancient world. And by the way, they were. The first flame cannon documented in history, it goes back to, are you ready for this? Over 400 years before the birth of Christ. Why was I researching ancient flamethrowers? I'm glad you asked. It's because of the way Jesus says what he says in our first reading. He says, I have come to set the earth on fire. Right? Literally what he's saying here is pyre balem. I've come to throw fire at the world. And I'm like, that's a little violent sounding. I've come to throw fire at the world. And just to, in case we're like, well, maybe Jesus means he wants to make a little cozy fire. And he's like, but how I wish that it were blazing, like a forest fire, out of control, strong and fierce. Now, for people who have the skill of selective Bible reading, and it's out there, for example, there's some people that think that Jesus only said 2 words, judge not. Jesus said 2 things. He said, judge not and never hurt anyone's feelings. Jesus doesn't say a thing about feelings. But to those who have selective Bible reading skills, we might say, wait a minute, this passage doesn't sound like Jesus at all. Especially when people say, what would Jesus do? Apparently Jesus would just let it burn. No. What does he mean by this? What's he saying about this? Jesus is making a challenge to you and to me to make a decision. We'll talk about that more in a moment. Let's talk about, again, the apparent paradox that we see here. Isn't Jesus supposed to be the Prince of Peace? Didn't Jesus also tell his apostles at the Last Supper, I give you my peace I leave with you. I come to bring you peace, but not as the world brings it. For those of us who have come to know and understand who Jesus Christ is, there is true and everlasting peace. The problem, my brothers and sisters, is that there will be opposition to Christ by the world. And this is where we see division. Standing up for truth, my brothers and sisters, sometimes means division. It's not the truth that's divided. The truth is whole. The truth is one. It's the opposition to the truth that causes division. Imagine this analogy. Did you guys see the lightning storm last night? I love watching lightning storms. There was one last night, and there was even an even fiercer one on Thursday night. And as I'm sitting on my porch in the dark watching it, because I love watching lightning storms. There was one time last night, about 3 or 4 times on Thursday night, when I was just looking at it, the lightning was fairly distant, but the whole sky lit up, and I couldn't see a thing for a minute. I was completely blinded by the flash of the sky. Similarly, I don't know if you've ever done these things where you've been in the house all morning and you finally step outside at about noontime and it hurts to open your eyes because you have to get adjusted to the sun. When we've lived in darkness, sometimes light can be painful. Sometimes light can even be apparently blinding. But when we adjust our eyes, we realize that we're standing in the light and we're standing in the truth. This is what Jesus talks about when he says there will be division, because some people would rather be comfortable in darkness than be awake in light. Now, one thing you may not know about me, and those who are closest to me definitely know this about me, I do not like to make decisions. I can, and I do, and I will. But here's the thing. When you make decisions, people get mad. No matter what decision you make. Decision equals division. And Jesus is encouraging you and me to take a moment to make decision. My brothers and sisters, if you sit on a fence for an extended period of time, all you end up with is a pole up your backside. It might seem comfortable, but tell you in the long term, you're not better off. And in fact, elsewhere in the scriptures, in this whole talk of fire, Jesus says to the church of Laodicea in the book of Revelation, you are neither hot nor cold, you are lukewarm, and I will vomit you out of my mouth. Again, if your Jesus only said nice things, that might challenge you a little bit, right? Jesus is telling us that we need to get with it. We need to make a decision. We live in a culture that's all of a sudden, one of the trending things on social media is red flags. Do you guys know about red flags? You know, like if you're dating someone and you see someone, like there might be some things, oh, this is a red flag, this is a warning. Let me tell you, ladies, if you're dating someone and he says, unless you love me more than you love your family, you're not worthy of me, that's probably a red flag. Jesus, the Son of God, says that. This is a continuation or a drawing out. He says, if you love father or lands or children more than me, you're not worthy of me. And if anyone else had said that, that was problematic. But here's the thing. By saying that, Jesus is claiming his divinity. In first century Judaism, there was nothing above a parent's law except for God's law. And so when Jesus says, now's the time to make decision. And there's going to be division. And there was. In the first centuries of Christians, almost all Christians became martyrs. They tried to stomp us out. It's like St. Tertullian told the emperor, the more you mow us down, the more we come back. We're like bad weeds. You can't get rid of us, man. In fact, he said the blood of the martyrs is the seed of the church. And did you know that there have been more Christian martyrs in the past 100 years than in the first 1900 years of Christianity? There are more martyrs today than there were under the Diocletian persecution, under the persecution of Nero. Just about a week ago, a church in the Congo was invaded. People killed. Church in the Middle East and Near East and Africa undergoing terrible, terrible persecution. It makes those of us who are feeling comfortable and cozy here in the United States be very convicted by the words of the letter of the author of the letter of the Hebrews today. In your struggle against sin, you have not yet resisted to the point of shedding blood. When you say the truth, you speak the truth, and you live the truth of Jesus Christ, it causes division, and people get upset, and it's nothing new. Look what they did to Jeremiah. They threw him into a well. They threw him to a well. He was up to his neck in dirty muddiness, sinking in quicksand, and finally someone said, all right, well, we'll pull him out. And things didn't get easier for him. Things didn't get easier for the Israel people in that time. He was telling them what was going to happen. He said, Israel, if you don't stop your ways, if you don't stop turning your back on God, you're going to go into exile. And that's exactly what happened. God's temple was destroyed, the king was overthrown, and the people were put in exile for over 70 years. But no one wanted to listen to the prophet who said there's a way to avoid all of this. Jesus, too, is calling us. He's calling you and me to move from lukewarmness to being set afire by the power of God's Spirit. A Christian that's on fire, you just can't help but be overwhelmed by his joy. You can't help but just want to be a part of what they're doing. It's like a fire. It's contagious. You're like, man, what's going on with you? What do you have that I don't have? They can't get enough of Scripture. They can't get enough of the teachings of the church. They can't get enough of prayer. And I'm not saying weirdos, okay? I'm talking like normal people that love their neighbor, are integrated in the world, are well-adjusted, but you see what's going on with them. You say, I want to be a part of that. Likewise, a lukewarm Christian, you can just see pretty easily. I think we know what those symptoms are like. Lukewarm Christian is one who doesn't incorporate prayer into their everyday life, who sees God as someone who they only go to when they need something. Lukewarm activities of Christianity would be showing up at Mass, and that's about it. Going to confession only once a year, if at all. Walking out the door as soon as you receive Holy Communion. Great symptoms of lukewarm Christianity. Determining that some church teachings or some teachings of Scripture don't apply to you because you can make up and interpret for yourself what to believe and what not to believe in the Word of God. Dismissing certain disciplines of the church because they're man-made rules anyway, so I'm going to be my own man, make up my own rules. These are signs of tepid faith. These are signs of lukewarm Christianity. And Jesus tells us we can't be that way if we're going to be His disciples. I think, and we should all be convicted by these things. And so I decided to consult the oracle. I decided to go to the fountain of all knowledge this week, that is ChatGPT. And I asked ChatGPT, what are some signs of a lukewarm parish? Right? The Mass feels rushed, casual, treated as routine rather than sacred worship. Parishioners rarely sing, respond, or actively engage in the liturgy. Few opportunities for the sacrament of confession, or little emphasis on its importance. No adoration, processions, or catechesis on the real presence. Sermons focus mainly on being nice, or vague moral issues, avoiding sin, salvation, or doctrine. Avoidance of moral teachings that may be unpopular, i.e. the sanctity of life, marriage, and the cross. No sense of mission, evangelization, outreach, or service. The parish operates more like a club. Hospitality is weak. Newcomers feel unwelcome or invisible. Few parishioners take initiative in ministries or apostolates, with the most relying on the same small core. Energy goes into keeping the lights on and running programs rather than fostering holiness and discipleship. Parishioners rarely challenge to go deeper in conversion or to offer sacrifice. Little emphasis on communal or personal prayer outside of Mass. Overall, the attitude of good enough rather than striving for holiness and missionary zeal. Now, the good news is that's not us completely. But there's a few things there that, right? Like, okay, have I let some tepidness or lukewarm into my life? Now I decided since I wasn't convicted enough, I would go further into ChatGPT, down the rabbit hole and say, ChatGPT, what are some signs of a lukewarm Catholic school? Catholic symbols are present, but more ornamental than integrated into daily life. The school claims to form students in the faith, but Catholic values are not meaningfully lived out in teaching, discipline, or culture. Students and staff see Catholic practices as an add-on rather than at the heart of the school's identity. Morning prayer, grace before meals, or class prayer are rushed, perfunctory, or omitted altogether. School masses are infrequent, poorly attended, and treated as an obligation rather than joyful worship. Confession is seldom offered. No Eucharistic adoration, processions, or catechesis on the real presence. Catechesis is vague, moralistic, or avoids church teaching on hard topics. Religion is treated like any other subject, not as the very heart and core of formation. Science, literature, and history and the arts are taught as if faith has nothing to say about them. Issues of justice, charity, and service are sidelined and replaced by secular activism without a Catholic grounding. Teachers and administrators may not model prayer, virtue, or fidelity to the church. Students are not invited into retreats, devotions, or meaningful opportunities for encounters with Christ. It is good enough to be polite or a good person without encouragement towards sainthood. Students are not invited, I just read that one. The school operates like a private institution rather than part of the parish's mission. Low standards, That's it. That's it. Oh, yeah. Service is reduced to box checking service hours without real formation and Catholic charity or evangelization. Now, again, by and by, I think we're doing pretty good. But it is my hope that I offended somebody in the church today with all the things I've talked about. I hope that all of us have been somewhat offended or stirred by some of these things. Have I allowed tepidness or lukewarmness into my heart, into my life, and is affecting my mission and my ministry as a Christian? Jesus is calling us this day, this moment right now, to move from indecision to decision. My brothers and sisters, I don't know if you've noticed this, but the world is absolutely crazy. You know, I've said it over and over again. It's become almost a mantra of mine. My job's become easy. I no longer have to convince you that the world is crazy. The craziness of the world has testified to itself. So, my brothers and sisters, it's time to say yes to Jesus Christ. And by saying yes to Jesus Christ, it means saying no to the craziness of the world. My brothers and sisters, what I am trying to say is this is not a time for pansy, half-hearted Christians. This is a time to stay grounded in the reality of Jesus Christ. It doesn't mean we're mad and angry all the time. There's joy in the gospel. There's freedom in the gospel. You know, the people of Israel, they were free, but man, by the time when they had to put foot to desert sand, they started getting mad and grumbling and complaining. I'd rather be a slave, at least it was more comfortable. The call of Jesus tells us to step out of our comfort zone. The call of Jesus is about separation. The brothers of Zebedee were separated from their father and their nets. Peter was separated from his immediate family, his mother-in-law, his wife. The women who followed Jesus were separated from their homes and their comforts. Zacchaeus was separated from a life of comfort and luxury and sin. And everyone who follows Jesus is called out of sin into newness of life. Don't confuse division, don't confuse order and division with division for the sake of division. God's creating force is always creating unity. But sometimes it requires separation and division. Look at the very beginning of the world. The world was formless and void. What does God do? He brings order in the chaos. How does he do it? Separating. Let there be light. Separating light from darkness. Separating day from night. Separating sun from moon. Separating earth from dry land. By doing that, he brings order and peace out of the chaos. But there are some of us who would much prefer chaos than the peace, security, and order that Christ brings. We're still stuck in the cave. Maybe it's Plato's cave. We prefer shadows over reality. We prefer darkness over light. We prefer lies over truth, which means ultimately we prefer death over life. And the choice for Jesus Christ, my brothers and sisters, is always the choice that brings life. It might not bring us popularity in the world, but who cares? Remember, the world's nuts. But it brings us the eternal grace, the eternal security, and the peace of knowing that we are doing what is right. And so the challenge of Jesus Christ is, again, to move us from indecision to decision, to have us make a definitive, fundamental choice to follow Jesus above all else, to love him more than anything else, to desire union with him above all else. So the question that we have to ask ourselves is, what am I going to do? Am I going to step into the light or prefer comfortable darkness? Am I going to step into truth or prefer convenient lies? Or am I going to take the path that leads to everlasting life over the path that leads to eternal death?